With the busy fall season around the corner, you might be looking for some wholesome, convenient meals for your jam-packed days. Kids back in school, work is heating up again. Well, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. You can refresh your healthy habits without missing a beat. Choose from 34-plus weekly flavor-packed, dietitian-approved meals, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Too busy running around during the day to think about lunch? Well, keep your energy up with Lunch to Go. Effortless, wholesome meals like grain bowls and salad toppers that are ready to eat when you're on the go. No microwave required. Or if you're looking for calorie-conscious options ahead of busy season, try delicious, dietitian-approved calorie smart meals with around or less than 550 calories per serving. Or if you need an extra boost to support your wellness goals and feel your best for the rest of summer and the start of fall, try Protein Plus meals, my favorite, with 30 grams of protein or more per serving. So this August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. So head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off. It's J Leman, Illini Inquirer football analyst, all-American linebacker. Jay, we're back for another football season. Glad to have you back, man.
Let's go, baby. I'm fired up. This is one of my favorite hours every Monday. And what was so fun about last year is we got to talk about a lot of victories and stuff like that. So I'm hyped up. I got the helmet in the background right here. So I got my swag on. ILL, let's go. Fam Illy.
Well, obviously, the fan base is excited, as they should be, Jay, with what happened last year. And I mean, I think the offseason was huge for Illinois. To get, some of these guys who could have been NFL players right now back for another year is significant, especially when you lost a lot of talent. So I want to ask you as a player, you have a breakthrough year. I know you weren't here for the 08 season after the 07 season, but how much does, as a player, as a program, that breakthrough year carry over into the next year? Like, how much does actually last year matter for this team?
Well, I think when you look on a macro level for programs across the board, it matters a lot. With Illinois, it hasn't seemed to matter as much, right? Because we've had years and then we've dropped off. I look at let's just talk about recent history and recent memory. 1999, they kind of had a breakthrough year. Beat Michigan and Ohio State on the road. Then fell out of bowl contention when Kirk Hinner got hurt in 2000. 2001, followed it up with a 5-win campaign after a Big Ten championship. In 2007, probably most anticipated season until now was 2008, and failed to make a bowl. So I would say it should build on itself. And what I like though is this is happening a lot earlier though in Brett Bielema's tenure. That was year 3, year 4, year 5, sometimes for coaching staffs. This is year 3, and you really feel momentum, I believe, in number one, getting, you have to recruit your own roster still, right? More than ever. Not so much back then. Did a phenomenal job, as you mentioned, Jeremy, of recruiting his own roster. I think when you do that, you have a chance to win. Number 2, I think overall, the sheer depth they're building is at a level we haven't seen in a very long time in Illinois at each position. And we'll go in and break that down. So that's really exciting to me. Number 3, the mentality of, wait a second, not only did I win 8 games, I was in it. I was in it to win it with some of the best teams in the country. Probably the second best team in the country was Michigan. I know they lost to TCU. But you've got to take a lot of confidence in that. And this is a team in Michigan that I believe won it's the Joe Moore Award, I think. I think it's called Joe Moore, which is the top, lineman play 2 years in a row, right? And so we can go head to head with the very best in the trenches. And there's been many years we couldn't quite say that, Jeremy. So I have a lot of confidence in that. I think they have a lot of confidence and I think the confidence streams from the head man, Brett Bielema. I think Brett is a guy that oozes confidence, very comfortable in what he's doing.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit there, Jay, about what makes you feel good about this team.
It starts in the you guys can cut me off,
But it feels good in the trenches, right? Like, and you and I know, especially with one more year of the West, what wins the West usually is the team that is strong in the trenches. And to get 3 all Big Ten caliber offensive linemen back, to get Johnny Newton back for another year, Keith Randolph back for another year, that just, and then Seth Coleman and Gabe Akis, we can go into those guys too. Like that's one of the best offensive defensive line combinations in the Big Ten, not just the Big Ten West.
Well, I mean, I would agree with that statement you just made. I'll take our defensive front against anybody in the Big Ten. I really will. I mean, I don't know if I'd trade any of those. I don't think I'd. If you said, hey, I'll give you all of Ohio State's defensive linemen, all of Michigan's defensive linemen, I wouldn't trade them for Illinois' defensive line right now with the experience and the dogs we have up front. And I mean that in a dog is a term for, just a great player, right? I mean, they've got some real physicality to them. And so, what I love about our defensive line is not only that they're great technicians, they're great guys, but they play with incredible effort. And then on the offensive line, we have those 3, all Big Ten caliber guys. I think Isaiah Adams probably the leader in that. But you asked the question, what wins the West? And what wins the West is, quite frankly, defense and trench play. And I think if you're this team, you have to say to yourself, if you don't win the West, it's a disappointment in this season with what you have coming back. And I think that has to be the expectation.
They seem to have that expectation, Jay.
Yeah. And they should. And honestly, their expectation should be to win a Big Ten championship and possibly get into the playoff. I know that sounds so far off, but you look at the schedule. And if they're able to get there, we'll talk about the September schedule. They're able to get to September and they beat every team in September. You look at that schedule, you say, Illinois is even with about all these teams. I mean, I look at it that way. You get a couple things to fall your way. Now, we might be pie in the sky talking about playoffs and what playoffs, right? We might be pie in the sky, but certainly not pie in the sky. This team should win or be highly competitive in the Big Ten West. And I think that's an exciting point to it. There's a lot of questions to be answered. We're going to attempt to answer those questions. But I think with 4 new coaches now with David Braun being the head coach, this is the time to really pounce. Of course, everything changes next year.
Yeah. What concerns, Jay, do you have about the Illini for the 2023 season?
Oh, yeah. I'll start with the quarterback. We never really seen Luke Altmyer play other than me and you got to watch the spring football scrimmage, and that was good to see Luke play. If you read between the lines, between what Barry Lunny says and Brett says and what receivers say, they all say he's doing great. But why wouldn't you say your starting quarterback's doing great, right? Or that he throws a great ball. But I think that the passing game in general is going to take a step up. But it's a concern for me because we weren't able to throw the ball downfield, and it really hurt us late in the year when people crowd the box to stop Chase Brown. So my concern is with the quarterback, number 1. Number 2 is related to that. Do we have a legitimate deep threat out of all these guys that we got? Malik Elsley, does Pat Bryant take the next step? Does Casey Washington have an ability to he's never really had an ability to stretch the field. He's been a good possession receiver, but do we have anybody that can carry Wilcher? I don't know if I pronounced his first name correctly. Wilcher. Will Hank Beatty make some plays? What's Tip Ryman's role going to be? I thought Tip, obviously got voted as a captain. I've been high on Tip for a long time. I think he's an NFL tight end. I think he's got to have confidence catching the football this year, right? So it comes down to the offense. And I think what concerns me as well is a secondary that is green and probably one of their most experienced. Taz Nicholson is the most experienced, but Matthew Bailey got some really, really great reps and great time last year. That seems to be out at least until Penn State, and re-aggravated a foot injury, according to what Brett says. He could be back sooner, he could be back later. So those are my concerns that I come off, just like that. And I also would say we had some kicking issues last year, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we were a little bit inconsistent early on. Fabrizio came in and I think nailed 6 or 7 in a row. But I want our punt and kicking game to be more consistent. And I know we were coming off of James McCourt and Blake Hayes, and we're a little spoiled. But if we're going to play ball control in the style we do, we need to be good in the kicking game. So those are my concerns. Notice I didn't say anything about the lines. So there you go.
Yeah, and the Luke Altmeyer, we've seen the talent, Jay. You saw some spring ball. We actually got to see some of that. There's clearly arm talent. We'll see how he processes all those things. I mean, we just got to see him with live bullets in front of him. So what does Illinois need from Luke Altmeyer, and how does Barry Lonnie Jr. get it out of him?
It's funny because I think you asked me this question last year with Tommy DeVito, and like any good interviewer, they got their ace in the holes, for what questions to ask. And I think we thought Tommy would be good with his mobility. We didn't know how good Tommy could throw the football, right? We didn't know how accurate Tommy would be. And albeit a lot of it was RPO, a lot of it was bubble screen, a lot of it was short throws. He was an accurate player, very poised, had some headiness to him, and for the most part took care of the football. But we thought that DeVito's legs were worth 3 to 5 first downs a game. And sometimes that was the difference. Sometimes his legs were the difference. You get in tight games, and this is across the board. I saw this in the playoff game with Georgia and Ohio State. Although Ohio State lost that game, C.J. Stroud didn't run at all during the season. And he ran for like 70, 80 yards in that game, and that could have been the difference in that football game, right? So when you get into tight football games, stuff breaks down. There's good coverage. There's good plays. Protection breaks down. Can your quarterback make a play? And so I know Altmeyer has been considered a pretty decent athlete. So I think, number one, can he pick up some stuff with his legs? I think when stuff breaks down. But he's not in there to run the ball. He's in there to throw the football. And what I liked about Luke when I saw him, first off, he has a very catchable ball, much like Wes Lunt had a catchable ball, but he's got a little bit more zip than Wes Lunt. I wouldn't say he's got a rocket for an arm. I don't see a Juice Williams ball out coming out of him, but Juice would probably the first day his ball wasn't the most catchable. Neither was Brett Favre's, right? So I mean, guys with the strongest arm doesn't necessarily have the most catchable ball. For me, it's about accuracy. Drew Brees didn't have the strongest arm, not the tallest guy, but very, very accurate, most accurate quarterback in NFL history. And so we look at accuracy. He was accurate during the scrimmage. I really like his release. And reading up on him, he claims that his catcher days helped him get the ball out quick. I do like his release. In this day and age where we got timing routes and you have a long Tebow windup, remember, that was the death of Tim Tebow in the NFL, is that his windup was really, really long. And I like Altmeyer gets it out quick. I think that's what they're looking for in a Barry Lunny offense. And so, but he's also, I've never seen the guy take a hit. I mean, as Mike Tyson always says, everything changes when you get punched. Everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. So can he take a hit? One of the knocks on Wes Lunt was that he wasn't strong enough in the pocket. And just because you're, a pro-style quarterback doesn't mean you can't be strong in the pocket. I say Tom Brady's one of the strongest people in the pocket, the way he stands and whatnot, what he did. So all those things. And then is he a leader, right? I think Tommy was a real leader behind center that maybe we lacked in prior quarterbacks. Not saying they were bad people, but I thought the leadership level with Tommy DeVito went up a notch. And that was exciting to me to see that from the quarterback position. And I know Luke is new here. I know he's only a sophomore on the field. But as a quarterback, when you touch the ball every play, you got to be a leader for your football team. So you've got to be that guy. Again, another long-winded answer, but a quarterback's an important position.
No, Jay, and some fans, and maybe earlier in my career, I would have thought, it doesn't matter if he's making all the throws, like the leadership, if he's not the most outspoken guy, which can be true, but I've seen enough of it at this level that it matters. You talk about it enough. The coaches talk about it enough. Like, Brett Bielema talked about it with Brandon Peters. Those Tony Peterson talked about it with Brandon Peters. Right. We need him to be more of a leader. And I think we saw it on the field, whether it's, and it's not to throw these guys under the bus, but Brandon or Wes, when the offense is struggling, you need your quarterback those people in the huddle to believe in him, that he's going to go make a play, because, man, we've seen an offense get stuck in mud. So I'll let you answer. Why does it matter for a quarterback to be a vocal leader or a leader in some way?
It's 2 words, Big Mo. And Big Mo is something that in college football that is so devastating or exhilarating, depending on what it is. I'm talking about momentum, right? It's a momentum game, right? When you got momentum, everything goes right. When you don't have momentum, everything goes wrong. And a momentum starter is the quarterback or your leader. Your momentum stopper, where you're like, hey, we got to really, we got to plug up the dam. It's everything's coming through like that right there is who a momentum shifter can be. There can only be there's only a couple momentum shifters on your football team, right? Who can really say they can break the game open, and that's what somebody who can take the lid or the top off a defense can do, or a quarterback, or a big defensive lineman that can make a big sack at a critical time, or a defensive back that makes a pick. Like, you have to have momentum shifting players that can make momentum shifting plays. And if your quarterback is not a momentum shifter and is a game manager, you've got to get that from someone else, right? And I think momentum in this league, even more so than pro football, is so big that because these are young guys, right? These are 18 to 22 guys. Stuff's going great. It's going great. Stuff's going bad. It's going bad. So I think that's a big part of it. And that's why I think the quarterback has to be a leader.
Yeah. What do you think of the weapons around Luke Altmeyer?
Well, I know they've talked highly about Pat Bryant. I think I've seen Pat get better and better and better. I think the first time I saw Pat on the field was probably Purdue 2 years ago. He got some reps. Then the Iowa game, I think he played pretty solid. So all that stuff. And then I saw him last year have a couple breakout catches and whatnot. I think Pat Bryant's kind of probably receiver number one right now. I might say that Malik Elzy, with his size and speed, probably has a higher ceiling than a guy like Pat Bryant, but I don't think he's there yet. I think we'll see Elzy. I want to see Sean Miller play. I mean, it was pretty devastating to have him get injured so early last year. So I like what I see from there. And of course, Isaiah Williams, right? I mean, let's not forget about Isaiah. He kind of gets lost because they use him a lot on, short little sweep passes, little dink and dunks. But from what I hear, Isaiah's taking the next step as far as being a receiver. Remember, he's only 2 full years into being a receiver. And so I think he's still honing his craft. He's got the leadership. So again, I will take our receiver group. I think we went from, mid to lower echelon last year to mid to upper echelon right now. When you look at the Big Ten West, at least, do we have a Marvin Harrison Jr. on the squad? I don't think anybody else has that other than Ohio State, right? But I think they're developed. I think they've got I think Barry Lunny's they've had a year in Barry Lunny's system. I think Casey Washington's been steady. I think Tip Ryman's going to catch more balls. I think Hank Beatty's going to make some plays. So I've heard Ashton Hollis's name come up too, as a guy that's made progress. And, I've seen he's a tall, big-bodied guy. If we can get Ashton Hollis the ball and throw it up, that's always been the knock on Isaiah, just tough to hit in a jump ball situation and contested catch situation, which I know he's working on.
Yeah. What do you think of the running back situation? I mean, there's no Chase Brown in this group that we know of, but I mean, Illinois, with as good as Chase Brown was, he was amazing last year. They were 7th in the Big Ten in rushing, Jay, like 50 something in the country. So I think we think of Chase Brown, how good, can this rushing attack take another level without Chase Brown? Like, what do you think of how they approach the rushing?
Question. Well, I mean, we look at Brett's history. I mean, he's going to run the football. And, I played against PJ Hill, who was a pretty good player. And then, after PJ Hill, I think it was Monty or Monte Ball. We changed it. We pronounce his names different ways. I'm still not sure which one it was. James
John
White.
Clay.
John Clay was after that, right? John Clay, Melvin Gordon was in that. James White. So I mean, he replaced him, and that was more of a run-centric offense. So I think Brett's always going to have a guy that can be productive. Do I think we can be more productive? I don't know. I'm going to say I'm the jury's out on that. It's possible. I think we're going to be more efficient offensively and more balanced because not everything's going to go through Chase. But I think we're going to focus on throwing the football a little bit more because I think that's what they want to do. I think to win those games, they're going to have to do that. There's going to be times where we get up on people and ball control and run the ball. That's not to say I don't like Reggie Love. I think Reggie stepped in admirably when he had to for a guy that really was the number 3 back last year. But when he stepped in, Northwestern game, played great. I would say played solidly against Mississippi State as well. And to get Josh McCray back, I never like to judge a football player when he's injured. I don't think Josh McCray was healthy the entire year other than the first quarter of Wyoming. So I don't think it was a fair assessment of Josh McCray last year. Obviously, he redshirted, and so I'm excited to see him play. But I'm also excited to see Caden Fagan play. I think, as Brett said in a press conference, I think, when our guys are excited to see him play, you got something special, right? Because obviously he's doing something in practice. Like, okay, I'm excited to see Aiden Lawford play. I mean, supposedly he's got a different gear. He's taking some to the house. Can he stay healthy? He's had issues being healthy. He's a different change of pace back. I'm probably missing one of the other guys, but that's kind of the top 4 or 5. And Jordan Anderson, I know, was banged up. But Anderson, is kind of like a Josh McCray. I think those guys are going to battle for carries, and so is Fagan. I wouldn't be surprised to see Fagan or Anderson in a different position by the end of the year just to get them on the field. That's not saying they're not good running backs. but I could see Fagan being an H-back. I could see Fagan being a tight end. I just don't think you can keep those guys off the field. They're going to find a way. And I think he's playing left guard on punt, according to Brett. I mean, that's a big deal for a freshman to be on a punt team. But punt is a real deal. I mean, this is a game-changing play. Most fans are like, oh, it's punt. Okay, let's go get some beer. It's more like, man, we can flip the field 50 yards, get a block punt. So it's important.
You hear guys talk about LZ and Fagan like they're different, like even the players. Jay, who are the guys when you were junior, senior that came in and you're just like, this guy's different?
Well, there's a couple different things. I mean, when we saw Vontae actually cover one-on-one the first time, Vontae Davis, nobody moved like Vontae in a box that I had seen in a long time. When I say in a box, like in a 10 by 10 box, agility-wise, like covering somebody. And he was also very, very physical for his size. Vontae could hit, but his acceleration was next level. Really it's been when he came to campus, it took me 3.5 years to try to actually power clean 315 pounds. Okay. Aurelius Ben goes on his second day and Regis, comes up to it and just boom, just cleans. I'm like, man, where did this guy come from? And how is he that strong? Okay. And then, of course, Martez Wilson came in and, Martez, we were actually roommates on the road. So he was my roommate when we traveled, and they would pair up younger guys with older guys, and he was playing linebacker and whatnot. And Martez, I just remember it was just so easy. Like when I tried to get off blocks, it would be like, oh, Martez would go boom, boom. And I was like, man, what is it like? Is it the hips? Is it the size? I mean, this is a guy that was, 6'4", 245 as, a freshman. And so those are guys that pop off. Here's some other guys people don't realize is Derek McPherson was a really, really highly touted guy that came in probably Zook's first year, had unbelievable athleticism. He was a little bit, he was different. And of course, who can forget Rashard Mendenhall? I mean, Rashard, we used to joke that out of the womb that kid had muscles, but when he showed up, man, I mean, he was pretty yoked. And by the time he was a junior, his last year, you looked at that guy in the backfield, like you're making business decisions. Do I want to actually tackle this guy or not? So, those are some of the players that I think about that I'm like, okay, these guys were pretty freaky when they came in. There hasn't been a ton at Illinois, but Zook finally got it. And I've told after I was left that Corey Legit was similar as well as from a big name perspective.
Just to wrap up the offensive conversation, year 2 of Barry Lunny Jr., what's the necessary step there, Jay?
Well, Barry knows they got to throw the football better, right? They got to score more points. Did they do a good job of taking care of the football and ball control? I would say yes, they did. But I don't think it was necessarily offense that he had under, is it Frank Harris, who's the quarterback at UTSA, who might be one of the best players in the country this year. I don't think it was that offense yet. But I think we're trending that way. And that's why I'm really looking for Luke Altmyer to see what it actually looks like. I think Barry wants to throw the football down the field. This is an ex-quarterback who set all kinds of records at Arkansas. Yeah, he wants to throw the football. But Illinois has an identity of running the football too. So we're going to have both. But I would not be surprised to see them stretch the field more. Just from what I know, when they look at the self-scout of last year, they just were not able to get chunk plays in the passing game enough.
I want to take a minute and tell you about Home Field. They are a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. They emphasize their commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They feature a growing collection of over 150 plus colleges to choose from, including, of course, the University of Illinois. Home Field designs are super unique, guys, because they delve into the archives and history of each school, including Illinois, and they use unique logos and iconic moments to create thoughtfully designed apparel. So if you go to homefieldapparel.com, you can see the 80s Illini football helmet that so many like, Flying Illini logo, the Illinois basketball logo from the 2004-2005 Illini team. The script Illini is there. And you guys, these are the most comfortable shirts. And that's what I love about Home Field Apparel. You get the comfort, but you also get authenticity and nostalgia. So I'm telling you guys, give their site a look. It's not the typical Illinois gear you usually see. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com, where you can see their collection of colleges available. And guess what? Our listeners at Illini Inquirer get 15% off their first order with discount code Illini23. Again, 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com with discount code Illini23. So, as you go to Illinois football games, get ready for the Illinois basketball season, Home Field Apparel is the perfect apparel to get you ready for the upcoming season. So check them out at homefieldapparel.com. All right, Jay, let's switch to defense, where there's a new coordinator I want to ask you a little bit about. But there's also a new pass rush coordinator, outside linebackers coach, Charlie Bullen. And we talked about Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph. But Seth Coleman and Gabe Backus are really good talents. They really like Alec Bryant as well. And Bielema talked all offseason about we can get more out of our pass rush. Like there was more meat on the bone there. So what do you think Bullen can do? How does he get more out of the pass rush this year?
It's a good question. I think I was reading an article that you wrote probably, or somebody with Illini Inquirer wrote, about the outside linebackers. And, what's kind of an anomaly is that it's such a potent defense that caused a lot of turnovers, yet the sacks were about middle of the road Big Ten, and you don't just pressure the quarterback to get sacks, you pressure the quarterback also to alter throws. And I would make the argument a lot of those throws were altered, right? We also had a lot of great defensive backs on the back end. I think we can all agree that that's been well documented and proven. So, but I do think they believe they have the guys with the ability to get to the quarterback at each position. And when I say each position, I might say, I don't know, usually don't count on your nose tackle, whether it's Tira or someone else to get to the quarterback. A lot of times they're not in on pass rush situations, but I believe on any given down, Gabe, Seth, even Alec Bryant, Johnny, and Keith believe they can get to the quarterback, right? But as far as the outside backers, those are usually guys that should lead you in sacks. You're the edge rusher. You're going against a tackle a lot of times is one-on-one, where an interior lineman's doubling up on you with centers and guards and whatnot. So to bring Charlie Bullen in, I think was a good move. Obviously, he's coached a lot of great pass rushers. I want to see Gabe take the next step. I think Gabe, he flashed at times, but other times I never think that Gabe gets blown up. I think he's very, very strong at the point of attack. But I think just consistency as far as making plays on a consistent level. When we talk about consistency, I think it's Seth Coleman. And you and I have talked about Seth Coleman, and it's been at times he's one of the best football players on the field when he wants to be. He's a dominant player. He can totally cut off one side of the offense and has the range, the length, the strength, the flexibility to be everything that you want in a 3-4 outside linebacker. And so I'm excited about Seth. Remember, Seth wasn't even starting going into the year until Zeke Holmes went out, and then Seth kind of rose up. I believe that was the last year, wasn't it? Zeke got hurt last year.
Well, it was 2 years ago. Isaiah Gay started the season. Seth started last year because then Gabe filled in for
gotcha.
Home. But yeah, I mean, Seth got benched in his sophomore year.
Seth got, and there's Alec Bryant behind him. They need to get more out of it. And I think they'll have, and here's why, is they're going to have to really, make sure they block Johnny, make sure they block Keith, right? So they're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups, but you have to win your fair share of one-on-one matchups, and I think that's what they're looking for.
All right, Jay, the secondary, obviously brand new secondary, no Matthew Bailey. Taz Nicholson is back. We did see Xavier Scott, Tyler Strain play some significant reps, but a lot of newcomers at safety, including Miles Scott, Clayton Bush, Demetrius Hill, Nicario Harper. How do you think Aaron Henry approaches this now? I guess he's not a first-time play caller because he had the bowl game and had a pretty good performance.
Yeah.
But how does he approach a secondary with so many new guys when he does have a really good defensive front?
Yeah, so it's well documented that Illinois played man coverage a lot more than other teams, probably 70-75%. I don't see them being able to do that this year. You don't have a Devin Witherspoon who is literally an eraser for somebody, right? You don't have a a Swiss Army knife guy like Quan Martin who can do a lot of different things. So he would come down and play the star. He would come down and play nickel. He would play safety. And you don't have Sidney Brown, who was equally good in the box as he was on the top of the field. So we had some unique guys. And let's not forget Kendall Smith. I think Kendall Smith did a great job being a roof on the defense as well. So, but turning the page here, Taz was a good football player. Like we talked about. Taz is kind of like a Tasmanian devil when he plays, very physical, hurts himself a lot. I feel like he's in concussion protocol a decent amount. He hurt his wrist. But the defensive level went down last year when Taz went out. And I love Taz. I think Taz epitomizes the toughness and physicality of this team as far as a pound-for-pound guy. This guy certainly has some pound-for-pound toughness to him. Xavier Scott, we've heard all year how good Xavier Scott's been doing. Had a baptism by fire moments with all the motion that Michigan put him through, as we know. But he's moved on from that. I think he's going to be a good football player. I wouldn't be surprised with Matthew Bailey being banged up to put somebody like Clayton Bush out there that has some experience and kind of feels out to make some of the younger guys a little bit more at peace. I mean, who do we think is going to be the other corner? Is that Strain, Tyler Strain?
I think Strain would be the guy right now.
They usually love to have, 2 or 3 corners that they can bring in, right? And that was great about Quan because he could play corner if he needed to. And so there's a lot of, and I know they've recruited well at this position, right? I mean, they believe they have some guys, but man, there's going to be a learning curve, and let's just hope that defensive line works in tandem and gets the quarterback in time, right? Because that's going to make their job infinitely easier.
So if they're more zone, Jay, which we would expect, I don't know if that's 50% zone, 50% man, or 60% man, 40%. What does that mean for the defense?
Well, here's the thing. The biggest thing that changes as a defensive player is where your eyes at. In man coverage, my eyes are on my man. And so what ends up happening is I have no other awareness usually of another route, of what the route concept is other than what my guy's doing, or if the quarterback's going to run, because my eyes are on the quarterback. Zone, my eyes are on the quarterback and my man. I can react to quarterback run. I'm now looking at different route concepts on how are they trying to bait me one way or the other. Am I trying to get, trying to put a route in front of me that's some cheese for me as a rat to jump up on, so they can throw right behind me. And so it's a little bit different style. And typically, not always, for instance, Iowa is almost exclusively zone. A lot of eyes on the quarterback. Many times, an eyes on the quarterback team will have more interceptions than a man team, but maybe give up a higher completion percentage, okay? A man team might give up a lower completion percentage because the windows are tighter. They'll have more pass breakups rather than picks. Now, that wasn't the case for Illinois. They were phenomenal in getting picks last year, right? So there are caveats to it. And you add that in with, hey, we're going to bring pressure. It can accelerate all those different things and change. Do I play man more? Do I play zone more? But I would think that they would probably play zone more, especially with some of the offenses they're going to see early on the first 2 weeks. These guys have ability to beat you one-on-one. And if you're beat one-on-one, there ain't nobody else there sometimes. And so I think they're going to have more of a bend but don't break feel early on. But remember, Aaron Henry's a corner. He was a corner. And I think he's got a lot of belief in the defensive backs and loves the competitiveness of man-to-man coverage, not only as a player, but, I mean, we saw what he did with Devin Witherspoon, the development there.
Yeah. All right, Jay, you mentioned it. This early schedule, it's exciting from a competitive standpoint, but it can be a little nerve-wracking because this is a tough non-conference schedule when you get Toledo and Kansas right away playing good football. Then Penn State after that, Purdue at the end of the month. What's key for Illinois early is they kind of break in new quarterback, new secondary here.
Yeah, so first off, and it's not a knock on Illinois football. I just know how college football is. Illinois could be undefeated. Illinois could be 3-1. Illinois could be 2-2. Illinois could be 1-3 at the end of September. And I don't think we should push the panic button on any of those, just so you know, because this is college football and anything can happen. And we don't have a directional, Tech, A&M, Southwest Tech A&M, Texas. We don't have that team on this schedule, right? I mean, these are all solid football teams. Even FAU, solid football team with some familiar Big Ten faces, and Todd Herman and Ed Werner, stuff like that. So anyway, so what do they have to do? I think you have to find one or two things that are your bell cows early on that you can rely on, right? We don't know what that is offensively for this team. Our top running back's gone, and our quarterback is new. Okay. So what is the bell cow? Well, usually it's running the football and playing defense. I also think that if I'm the defensive coordinator and Aaron Henry and I'm Brett Bielema, I say, guys, these 4 games are on you. You've got to be the difference in these games. You have the biggest fair share of, like, I would say, senior leaders on that team with Johnny and Keith and Gabe. And so I know we have, some linebackers and whatnot, and that have had some experience in Tariq Barnes. But that's the biggest thing, is I think they've got to find out what can they hang their hat on. And initially, in all these early games, you'll see it. Whoever, and this is for any game, but turnovers are so critical in these games. And I'm concerned because we have a brand new quarterback who doesn't have near the experience of Tommy DeVito. I think there's going to be some turnovers. How do we respond, and how do we create turnovers? Because those are the ultimate equalizer in any football game.
Yeah, like I'm almost expecting a little growing pains, Jay.
Yeah.
Can you survive that? How does Altmyer respond to that? How does the secondary respond to that? How does the entire team? Because Toledo and Kansas, I think, kind of two similar teams. Kansas maybe a little bit more explosive, not very strong on defense, but these are two, I think, great tests for Luke Altmeyer and the secondary right away if you're looking to see what you got.
And I will say this, as hindsight's 2020, we would have said that Virginia was a similar type of offense to Kansas, explosive, throws the football all over the yard. Brendan Armstrong is a proven commodity, and they were just demolished. Despite only having 3 or 4 turnovers in the first quarter, they were absolutely demolished by Illinois. So hindsight's 2020. If you don't mind, I do want to talk a little bit about the linebackers. I can't go without telling linebackers. I think Tariq Barnes is one of the better football players in this conference. He's not highly praised. He doesn't have stats that jump up. But I will tell you what, I think Tariq Barnes is an NFL linebacker. I really do. I think, I think this is his 6th year here. Let's give fifth year.
Fifth year.
I'll give Miles Smith his credit for finding, I think he was out of Memphis, right? And I think Tariq Barnes is going to be a great football player for this team. I think he's very solid at the point of attack and pass coverage and leadership. We've heard a lot about Dylan Rosiak. I don't know, other than what I've seen on special teams. He's been solid on special teams. But, high school tailback, one of the first guys they recruited here and wanted to get here. Doesn't have a lot of height, but a lot of those Wisconsin backers back in the day, notably Chris Borland, didn't have a lot of height either, that played for Brett. So they're happy about him, and they like James Kreutz. They think that James has really, really come along, and I think that you'll see James Kreutz on the football field getting meaningful reps. And so when I talk about inside linebackers, those are the 3 that pop out to me. Certainly there could be more, but right now I think those are the 3 that you'll see get the majority of the reps.
Yeah, Kenan Odeluga involved in there too. Yeah,
I get confused on Odeluga because he was used kind of as a pass rush specialist this year. But he's another guy, built like a superhero. Right? He's pretty yoked up. He's got some Rashard Mendenhall biceps.
Yeah, but ridiculous biceps. Before I ask you what your expectations are for the season, Jay, you mentioned special teams earlier. It hurt Illinois last year, especially the inconsistency. And you think of how many close games they were in, whether it was Michigan State, Indiana, some of these games, Michigan. It matters. It makes a huge difference. And with as many toss-up games as I see on the schedule, they got to improve there.
Yeah, I would. And they brought in is it Robbie Drisher or Disher?
Disher, yeah.
Disher. Guys, I'm still getting my names right. But by the time I go on air from Big Ten Network on Wednesday, I'll be all good. Disher. They brought him in from Tulane. Tulane played well on special teams last year. You don't have a year like Tulane had without doing that. I believe they beat, was it Utah? No, USC in the New Year's Six game? I believe
so, yeah.
I believe it was in the Cotton Bowl. I believe they beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. And, I don't think you do that without being excellent in special teams. Let's give Illinois also, they were coming off of with the
Blake Hayes.
Blake Hayes in McCourt, but Ben Miller obviously had to step down. They had, it was Coach Snyder step in. And so they haven't had the continuity on the special teams as they've had in other spots, right? And so I believe we're going to take a big jump with Coach Disher. I believe that Caleb Griffin's healthy from what we know. I don't think he was 100% healthy at times last year. We know that because Fabrizio came in and did some good things. But I think if Caleb Griffin's healthy and Disher has it going, and the biggest thing is this, when you start to recruit better and when you start to get better talent, your special teams go up because your starters for 2024, 25, 26 are on the field. Dylan Rosiak was on the field last year as a special team guy, right? Odaluga was on the field last year as a special team guy. Xavier Scott was on the field last year as a special team guy. And now those guys are starters, right? And so that's really key, is that we're improving the depth. And I think that's the thing I'm the most excited about. And you get to see it because you guys follow recruiting so well in Illini Inquirer, is that the very depth of the program is so much better than it has been in years past. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's definitely getting there. Like, you can handle some injuries at certain positions. Other positions, like defensive line, a little concerned. But yeah, I think they're getting way better for the most part. All right, Jay, what are your expectations for the season? I know it could all change, but going into this year, I mean, you sound a little bullish on them from what we said in the early segment.
Yeah, here's the deal. I think this team could have anywhere on the high end I think this team could be a 10-win team in the regular season. I also think this team can be a 5-win team in the regular season. That's a huge span, right? And but they're right there as a program where they're very even with people. The player development has been fantastic under Brett, but I think you really see the player development in that first full recruiting cycle of how they do it. So year 4, year 5, we're not quite there yet. We hear Brett say comments all the time like, I wish this guy was here earlier and he would be this. He's got a lot of confidence in himself as opposed to maybe another coach in developing players, which I'm glad he does, right?
Yep.
He should. He's been a great developer of talent. And so I don't think we've seen the full result of Brett Bielema's system on players yet. We've certainly had some of it. We saw that with Devin Witherspoon for sure, and other players, and Johnny and Keith and Isaiah Adams, all that. But I think it could be a 5-win team. It could be a 10-win team. I think if you hammer it out, obviously I want to be really positive because I'm an Illini fan, but I think 8 wins is where this team ends up. But I do think they're in the thick of the Big Ten West in week 12 and week 13. I mean, I think they're right there with it. And I think they could be West Division champions, even with 3 losses in the West. I really do. 3 losses, in Big Ten play. So that's where I see where they're at. Again, I could see them going up as high as 10 wins. I could see them going up as 5 wins. They can beat anybody on their schedule, but we all know this. Sometimes you lay an egg and sometimes you cook a steak, right? The reality is like, some days are not your best day and some days are, really good. And so we got to find out which days those land on.
And that's what's exciting about this season, Jay, is the possibilities are so big because every game, if they lay an egg, they can lose. Like every game, if they cook a steak, they can win. Right? Like that's what's so interesting about how the schedule is all set up.
It's fascinating. And I think you got to realize, like, anybody can beat you at this level, right? People are athletes, right? And we've had our fair shares over the last decade, not under Brett, but of losing to MAC teams, of losing to teams that we shouldn't lose to, right? And we've had our fair share of, looking at a big team like Michigan State last year, who was not a good football team, come in and just completely outplay us, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and then we have games where we completely outplay another team like Wisconsin, who probably wasn't as bad as they played against us, but they laid an egg, we cooked the steak. So I think it just goes back and forth. One thing I don't lose sleep over with the staff is I don't think we're always going to be prepared.
Yep.
I don't think we're not going to be prepared. I know we're going to be prepared. I know Brett is a wizard on situational football. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I think he knows his game plan and what he wants to do. Do we have the horses in the stable to execute all the time that we need to? Maybe not yet. We'll see.
Yeah, it seems like the Brett Bielema era is all about every game seems competitive for the most part too. So anybody coming to a game feel like it's going to be a competitive game.
Well, and and in his defense, that's kind of been the Big Ten West thing. I mean, Iowa never really blows people out. With Minnesota kind of grinds games. Northwestern, I think, is the king of winning or losing close games in a year. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really, but when you have this much coaching turnover in a division, listen, it's a huge opportunity.
Yes.
Huge opportunity. I don't care how good a coach you are or where you come from. There's going to be a learning curve for each one of those teams. I not knock on Matt Rule or Luke Fickle or Ryan Walters or David Braun. There's going to be some times where, like, man, they're not going to be running as efficiently as a third-year program coach like Brett's team's running. It's just not there yet. And so I'm excited to see the opportunity Illinois has.
Yep. That's why I have Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, all of my top 4 in the Big Ten West. It's got continuity.
Here's the deal. I don't think there's a team like, as the great Don Harden, former Illinois volleyball coach, said, and I'm quoting him here. I've been told he said this, and it's a good quote, so I like it. I'm sure other coaches have said it, is if you're looking at the schedule and there's no patsies, you're the patsy, right? But I would say that's not necessarily the case here. I think anybody that looks at the schedule and sees Illinois is saying, okay, we're going to play that. We already play that. There's no pushover thing. I think I was looking on Penn State. I was talking about Penn State. We were doing a Penn State thing with Big Ten Network, and a lot of fans are really scared about that Illinois game in week 3, right? I mean, they know they got to beat Michigan and they know they got to beat Ohio State. But the way they see it, if we lose to Illinois and then we split with Michigan or Ohio State, we're out of the Big Ten championship, right? As far as the East Division goes, okay? And so to them, that is a huge, huge football game on the 16th because they realize, especially what happened 2 years ago, Illinois can beat them and probably, has the horses to consistently beat them. So we'll see. I'm excited about that game as well. But that's 3 weeks on the road.
J Leman, it's good to talk ball again, man. And looking forward to next week, next Monday. We can do it again, talking about a real game. Instead of talking about what could happen, we'll get to start talking about what did happen. So
and get to see the players.
Yes.
I know there is so much secrecy around every college football practice now, and so it's not unique to Illinois. But I just remember random people coming and watching practice. You could just walk right up to the stadium back in the day, almost all the time. It felt like, so it was interesting, but times have changed. I'm looking forward to it. Great season. Listen, there's nothing like college football in the Midwest at this time of year and the fall and the weather and the first week. What I love, we used to be excited because we were always undefeated the first week of the season. There was expectations that were high. We usually had our balloon pop by week 3 or 4, but this year's going to be different.
J Leman, you're the goods, man. Appreciate it.
All right. See you, bud.
I'm very excited to announce a new partnership with Underdog Fantasy. We decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Underdog Fantasy has a lot to offer, including their Pick'em game. In Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can more than 20 times your amount of money by going 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, you got to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $50 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with promo code Illini and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with my promo code Illini to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. You must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org.